I have always thought that the hosts at the Fox propaganda outlet had a humiliation kink, at least a little one, because why else would they allow Democrats to come on their show, run circles around them, take them to task, and shut down their lies? I've always believed that. But now I know for certain it's true after Democratic pastor and Texas Representative James Talarico humiliated Will King so badly on his show that he had to kick him off air and end the interview early after being left speechless. We're going to get into this masterful takedown, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, we cannot wait any longer because this clip is just so great. Let's take a look at James Talarico.
You know, you've racked up fines. I assume you're in a hotel room. I'm not sure where you are in Illinois. You know, you've got different costs racking up, including travel. How is that all being paid for?
Yeah, we brought our own Texas flag, brought my cowboy boots, so we've got a little bit of home here in Illinois. And I wish desperately that I was back in Texas with my family, with my friends, with my constituents, even with my Republican colleagues. You know, I wish they weren't trying to rig the next election with these new maps in the middle of the decade. But unfortunately, they've decided to go through with this. And so we're using this legitimate constitutional tactic to stop that power grab and fight for our constituents.
Representative, let me just jump in because of the language. Just because of the language, I would love to jump in. You said rig the election. So let's just take a moment now and make sure that we're all on the same page when we choose the words that we use, just for the accuracy and edification of the audience. Did the state of Illinois rig their election when they drew their map the way they did as Sodrone, or the state of New York, or the state of Massachusetts, or the state of California? Would you describe those states as rigged elections as well?
I'm not an elected official in those states, but I've condemned those maps. I'm against gerrymandering wherever it happens. If it happens in a red state or in a blue state, it's wrong. But what's happening here is they're redistricting in the middle of the decade. So they already gerrymandered our maps in 2021. I was there. I spoke against the bill. I didn't break quorum. My colleagues and I didn't break quorum. We're breaking quorum now because they are trying to change the rules halfway through the game, and they're doing it at the request of the most powerful man in the country.
The President of the United States. No, we're going to go back to the funding. I don't want you or the audience to forget that that's where we are. But just because you've used the word rigging, I appreciate that you condemned those maps, that you're against gerrymandering wherever it may be. But to be clear then, I'm hearing you think those states are rigged. The elections coming out of Illinois and Massachusetts and New York, those are rigged elections as well. You condemn those. But you differentiate Texas. I think you just said that exactly. You said, I condemn those, called Texas rigged. They're similar in that way. So I would assume that means you think they're rigged. The only difference you drew was when? Middle of the decade, middle census. Well, Gavin Newsom says he's about to do that in California, and Kathy Hochul says she's about to do that in New York. So they are guilty, in your mind, clearly, of rigging elections, clearly in California and New York.
Both of those efforts in those blue states are contingent on if Texas decides to cheat, if Texas Republicans decide to draw these maps in the middle of the decade at the request of the most powerful man in the country.
So
again,
you rig in response
factors,
to something you call rigging. You cheat in response to something you think is cheating.
I'm trying to listen to you, and I'd love for you to try to give me a chance to speak. You know, I think that all of us should be alarmed, whether we're Democrats, independents, or Republicans, if the most powerful politician in the country, whether it's President Trump or President Obama, if they are trying to change the rules midway through the decade so that they don't have to face accountability for their actions. What I would ask you is, if Republican policies are so popular, why do they have to redraw the maps before the election?
Well, my answer to that would be a reflection of political popularity is the number of offices you win and the majority that you enjoy. And right now, Representative, you are a distinct minority in the state of Texas. Your points of view are extremely in the minority. And that is a privilege of the majority. You know, you talk about the president, and the left loves to lay everything at the president's feet because he's become your boogeyman. But this has been driven by the Texas representation in the state legislature. This has been driven by the governor of the state of Texas. Again, a Republican who holds the majority and represents the majority opinion. You've done something that you say is constitutional, which I would suggest is pretty radical, leaving your office, abandoning your office, in defense of a minority point of view that has been done in several of these other states where your party has the majority. It's a little bit like taking your basketball and going home when you don't like the way it's played, but when you're winning in Illinois, you're happy to play by these rules.
Again, I've condemned all gerrymandering across the country. And in fact, when Democrats had a majority in Congress, they voted to ban gerrymandering in every state, red states and blue states. Do you know how many Republican members of Congress joined them in that effort?
Which one? I'm sorry. Which state did you just refer to?
I'm asking, do you know how many Republicans joined Democrats in the U.S. Congress to ban gerrymandering? All the Democrats voted for it. 0 Republicans voted for it. 0.
It's an odd.
So
it's an odd.
You can spare me the both sides rhetoric. It's clearly one side that is trying to rig the rules in the middle of the game. This is like 2 football teams coming out of the locker room at halftime, and the team that's ahead says they want to change the rules for the second half so they can win the game. All of us would be throwing food at the TV if that happened. We don't accept cheating in our politics. We don't accept cheating in our relationships. We shouldn't accept cheating in our elections.
I appreciate whatever you just referred to about the number of Democrat congressmen that I'm unfamiliar with who made this against Republican congressmen who opposed it. It just kind of flies in the face of reality when I look at the state of Massachusetts, where Donald Trump gets 35% of the votes, and there are 0 Republican representatives from the state of Massachusetts.
And who signed that map in Massachusetts?
And so what I'm curious about is words say one thing and actions do something else in a place like Massachusetts. So you can't refer to random words and actions to me when I see the evidence in these states. Look,
well, you just referred
in my
to
view, Representative, you
what?
gave the ball game analogy. In my view, what has happened here is you've done something in certain states, and you don't like it when it's done in Republican states. And now you're saying you've done the same thing as us. You've done the same thing as us, and we are going to, by the way, if you do it, we're going to ratchet it up even more, in the words of Gavin Newsom.
My party has never gerrymandered in the middle of the decade at the request of the President of the United States, nor would we. The only way this is going to happen in blue states is if Texas executes this power grab. You mentioned Massachusetts. Do you know the party of the governor that signed that map into law? He was a Republican. It was a Republican governor that signed that map into law. So I just want to be clear with our facts, and I don't want to muddy the waters. All of us, whether we're Democrats, independents, or Republicans, we should stand up to politicians who don't want to face accountability at the ballot box. That's exactly what's happening here. And I asked you, if Republican policies are popular, why do they need to redraw these maps? Why can't they just run on their policies?
I'm getting wrapped on time. I'm enjoying this conversation. I want to let it go on, and I apologize.
Using the "we've run out of time" excuse after being shut down and humiliated so badly that you cannot respond is peak Fox propaganda host. That is peak. And what's so funny is that Will Cain then went on to talk about breakfast burritos for a minute more, like still in the interview. Like the interview didn't end there. He said, oh, well, we have to end it, but let me really quickly talk about breakfast burritos because they're so great in Texas. Okay, now I need you to leave. Like he did have to finish the segment. He just ended it early on the policy front. Like, MAGA Republicans cannot hold up to any intellectual scrutiny. They live in this bubble in which the arguments that they make, they claim, and this is the claim you hear so often, are common sense, right? Like that's what MAGA likes to say. Well, we just make the common sense points. We're just the party of common sense. But what they really mean is this is an emotional argument based on my observations, right? That these are emotional arguments based on the anecdotes of my life. That is what they view as common sense. And when they're confronted with actual real statistics, actual facts and logic, to borrow the Charlie Kirk phrase, unfortunately, the Ben Shapiro phrase, unfortunately, they crumble. And they don't even like to fight back because they can't. And it's not just Will Cain who suffered this problem. It was Dean Cain, the former actor turned conservative, I don't know, slop spitter. Like, I don't even want to call him a grifter. Like, that seems too nice. That means like he has like an agenda and thoughts behind him. Who was just decimated by Tim Miller in a debate, which you just got to check out.
You said on Fox that you'd be that you would, if they sent you in, you'd be happy to jump out of a truck and go apprehend people. So if you show up at the door of someone's home as an ICE agent, which you're an ICE agent now, do you know what rights they have?
I'm not an ICE agent yet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so you are an untrained former actor. You are an untrained former actor. I am a former actor.
I'm a former professional football player too. So when I run down my resume, I mean, so it's stupid.
I'm just telling a fact.
Yeah, but you denigrate it as though it's something negative. You denigrate it like it's something negative. Like you know what you're saying. So quit trying to gloss over it. It's ridiculous. It was snarky and it was stupid.
I'm telling you why it's negative because you don't know the job. You don't know the job. That's why it's negative. It's nothing.
You don't know that I don't know the job. You're just assuming. Did you know I was a law enforcement officer?
I just asked you, do you know what migrants' rights are? If you show up to someone's house as an ICE agent, do you know what rights they have? Do you know?
Have all the due process rights of anybody in this country.
Okay. So do you need a warrant signed by a judge to apprehend somebody?
This is ridiculous. I'm not a sworn ICE agent yet.
You were saying you were happy to jump out of vans and start apprehending people. You were bragging about that.
I will. And then you made it, of course. And I would if that's what the director asked me to do.
They're being doxxed left, right, and centre on social media and having their lives threatened. Of course they are.
No. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. For starters, we have evidence ICE agents aren't being trained. It is. Really quick. Let's go back to George Redis. He arrived at work. He was a U.S. citizen. ICE agents surrounded his car. He identified himself as a U.S. citizen. They broke his window, pepper sprayed him, and dragged him out. He's in detention for 3 days. So we do have evidence that they're not being trained to respect people's rights. And on the masks, this is crazy. Do you know how many judges have been threatened? You know, if you're a judge and you have, there's a case that is happening, you're a prosecutor, and you're targeting a murder suspect, these guys have been threatened. There have been judges whose families have been threatened. Their lives have been threatened. There are a lot of people in public life who have been threatened. You still don't get to wear a mask and be a secret judge. Not in a free country. You don't. I'm sure you get threatened. I'm sorry. If you're an agent of the government, if you're a representative of the people, you need to show your face and name yourself so that you have accountability.
If you were a conservative with the last name Kane, I guess you can't debate. I guess it's just built into the DNA. Again, these guys cannot hold on. They cannot hold up to any intellectual scrutiny at all. They just crumble. They have no response. They have no argument. They are just bitter, angry, and playing a very petty version of personal politics that only centers themselves in their worldview. And that's not surprised. These are not people alienated from the left or from liberalism or progressivism because of policy choices. That's not what upsets them. They are often just angry they don't have that many friends. Like the reason you see so many former actors becoming conservatives is because they're former actors. They're not getting any more work and they want attention desperately. So they think, oh, I'll go back to the good old days. That's when things were great. When I was on TV, when I was in movies, that's when things were good. All the woke is the reason that's gone. It's not true. They're petty. It's personal politics. They don't know what they're talking about. We're going to keep calling them out on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.